with the communication consultancy Open Communication. And I would love to invite Regina and Monique to the stage. So please give them a very warm welcome. Monique needs very little introduction. 20 years of international experience within the corporate communication world as a speaker, as a book author, now leading Open Communication as an internal communication consultancy for bringing change and transformation to life, I was briefed. And Flip, I very much hope that most of you know Flip. It's an intranet for frontline employees, and I hope that pitch is correct. I'm sure you will.
I can add.
And Regina is also bringing 10 years of corporate communication experience, and she leads the corporate comms and thought leadership at Flip. And both of you will be talking about why 2023 is the year of frontline communications. I'm very excited.
Thank you.
You have the clicker.
No, I don't.
I'm afraid it was stolen from me. Ah. Oh, it's okay. Thank you very much. Forward, backward. Enjoy.
Super. Thank you very much. And very warm welcome from our side as well. We're very excited to be here. And I'm actually very excited to be here with Monique, who I have met just a few weeks ago, actually on a rooftop on a very warm summer night in Berlin. She just arrived from Australia, a bit jet-lagged, I guess. It was a very, very lovely evening, and we started chatting and really quickly discovered both our passion for frontline communications.
So Regina, you coming from the app perspective and me coming from the internal comms perspective.
Right, and we had a very passionate talk, but you know, there were drinks that needed to be served.
I had to make sure that everybody had drinks and food. So just checking before we get started. Everyone good? Yep.
Very good.
Excellent.
So I felt like our conversation could have gone on for hours and hours. So I'm actually really glad that we're getting the opportunity to continue our conversation now here on the stage. And I remember that evening telling Monique about how I was just going to this conference, an HR employee engagement conference. And the big topic was AI and how AI is going to transform the way we work, the future work, how everything is going to become better and faster, and you know how we can get rid of a lot of tasks and topics that can be automated. And I told Monique about my frustration that when you look at most workplaces today, we're very far away from AI. We actually don't even have technology in most of the workplaces that we talk about. And I remember Monique telling me saying a sentence, and it actually became the topic of this conference and of our panel talk today. She said, "Well, Regina, 2023 was taken over by AI, but actually this is the year of frontline communications and digitalization." So maybe Monique, you can explore a bit on what you mean. Is AI really just a hype this year? Are we missing something bigger, maybe?
Well, AI is something that we're all talking about, and it's going to change and is changing the way that we work. But what really concerns me right now is inequality, and that's technology inequality. So 80% of our workforce are frontline staff. That is, those who are not in front of a desk all the time, those who might be shift working. Let me give you an example. Who here received a package in the past 2 weeks or a letter?
I did.
Yes. And how about dropped kids off at school? Yes. And maybe in the past year gone to the doctor? Exactly. These are our frontline staff. So they've got very different working kind of life than we do, maybe at the top on the rooftop, in the office with our desktop in front of us, our laptop in front of us all the time. They're, as I said, shift workers. They're
they have very different experiences at work. No technology that they use in their everyday life, actually. And I couldn't agree more. I actually brought a slide to show you how little has changed for frontline workers and how much has changed for us, actually. So we desktop workers over the last 70 years experienced a massive transition in technology, from the fax in the 60s to the first computers in the 80s to the first mobile phone, and you might remember the BlackBerry face. I actually do remember that quite well, having being able to send emails for the first time from a mobile device, to today's world where we all work on laptops, and we're lucky to work like I did last week from Sicily, or we can work from airports, from train stations, and we can basically pretty much decide where and when we want to work. However, deskless workers, their reality looks pretty much the same as it did 60 years ago, and it's actually quite shocking to think about it in the year 2023. I often say it's actually insane that a company like Flip has this massive business case to make, because things have not moved and changed for frontline workers. They still work with whiteboards. They still have little access to information. They still work with pen and paper in their daily works in the year of 2023. So to make it a bit clearer, I brought with me Joe Smith. Joe is a construction worker, and a day in his life looks like this. He has very little access to information. The information that he gets from his supervisor. It's information that has been passed through many hands, so it's not very organized. He needs to do his shift planning on bulletin boards. So he needs to come in, he needs to write it on pen and paper. He needs to come in every Monday to see his shift for the next week. He leaves his request when he wants to go on absences, when he wants to go on vacation, when he's sick. He needs to call, he needs to write a request. His pay slips he gets via letters, and his manuals and trainings he will find in a folder in the break room. Now, Joe still uses technology, but he only uses technology in his private life. He uses WhatsApp or Facebook. He has probably never written an email before in the work context. So he doesn't use Outlook, he doesn't look Slack, he doesn't do team calls like we do all the time. He has an old smartphone. He has one, but it's not the best. He has often very poor or no reception at work because he works on a construction site. And he so has, as a conclusion, little participation to digitalization and to change. And that is pretty much the reality of frontline workers today. Now you could argue, this has worked over the last 60 years. Things were being constructed, frontline workers still did their jobs. Why should we start caring today, actually? Well, the reason for this is that we're having massive pressure in our labor markets, especially in the frontline work. One reason is we're missing the people left and right. They're starting to lack, and they're starting to lack in system-relevant positions. So until the year 2030, in Germany alone, we will be missing 5 million people in the labor markets. So I read the statistic yesterday. Every year, 1 million people are leaving the labor markets because they're going into retirement, but only 500,000 are coming back to replace them. So we're having a second big problem with this, which is the demographic shift. You all know the demographic curves, they look like trees. Our societies get older and older, and we are missing the people to actually come in and make up for these people that are leaving the labor markets. And the third issue that we're seeing with frontline workers is they don't feel very much connected and very retained to the workplaces. Almost every second frontline worker, and this is a BCG study, is ready to leave their jobs in the next 6 months. And this is due to a very little connectivity that they're feeling to their workplaces. Only 17% say that they are connected to their workplaces. So we're having to do with fluctuation and with resignation in the frontline space. So the pressure on the frontline market is on. So maybe Monique, I
was just going to agree with you furiously, because as Regina just mentioned, I've just come from Australia, and at soccer, the other soccer parent complaining to my husband how his painting business is suffering because he can't get any painters to do the painting. We had a friend who had a lovely bar with a record production sort of recording studio at the top. They had to close the bar because they couldn't get the staff to staff the bar. So it's not just Germany, it's a global situation. Yes, there is that talk about AI and what robots can do, but I do think that's a long way off, and we're really at that position where we need to look after our people. In terms of the bigger picture as well, from a comms perspective, It's really interesting. I read some research, I think it was late last year's research, but 67% of frontline staff feel like the leadership messages are not reaching them. And 23% of them feel like their voice is not being heard in their internal comms. And so, as you were saying, that disconnect it's dangerous.
It's causing massive problems, and it's starting to show as well in terms of costs. So I completely agree. Maybe you can tell us a bit more around how communication is passed through to frontline workers these days. How does it look like in most of companies?
So I think things are getting better. There's a bit more technology. For example, one of our clients, a large transport company, they have actually issued all of their frontline staff with mobile phones. But we still see, for example, a case study that I can chat to you about later with store workers. They have 15 different communication channels. So that might be from scraps of paper or a roster that's pinned up that someone kind of will mark the changes and then go away and redo it on the computer and pop it back up again, to Facebook groups and to WhatsApp groups, which we all know is the bane of an internal communicator's ecosystem, because you have no visibility. There's GDPR issues. It's not looking good.
Definitely. So I think the realization that we really need to start changing the work days of frontline workers, and also that connectivity issue is really starting to get realized now. I brought in a case study just to show you a bit what we did with one of our clients, so you get a bit of a better feeling of how things looked before and how technology can actually change the working lives of these people. So I brought in, I was thinking a lot about what case study to bring. We work for a lot of big German and also international enterprise clients. I brought in Rossmann just because the case is very nice to make this link between internal communication and productivity. So who's Rossmann? For those who don't know, it's a German leading drugstore, one of the largest drugstores globally, over 60,000 employees in Europe, with more than 5,500 chains in Europe and over 2,200 in Germany alone. So what happened with Rossmann? It's the year 2021, 2020, actually, when the board decides we need to have a better and faster communication tool with our frontline staff. Internal communication before looked like this. They had a magazine that was published 6 times per year, printed to the stores. And anything that needed to be communicated faster, they would send a message to the stores, to the computer that was in their chains, and then you needed to be lucky for someone to pick up that message, to read it, and then pass it through to the rest of.
So lots of places of failure I can hear.
There's a lot of things where you wonder how this can still be the case in 2020. So they needed to, the management was really much looking for a solution that would bring faster and more transparent communication to the frontline workers. Now, 2020, another big topic pops up, which is the pandemic. And these frontline workers were basically there running the Rossmanns, where we were all doing remote work at home. And safety regulations, all new measurements needed to be transmitted to these people really, really quickly. So they were looking for a solution, and they tried a few different solutions, and then basically had the frontline workers decide on which solution they wanted to go for. Because the reality as well is you can't just bring technology to these people. As I said, they don't have the same tech savvy as we have. They need a solution that is super intuitive, super pragmatic, that they understand in less than 10 seconds. Because with frontline workers, you have one shot. They're either in or they're out. So basically, what they decided for was our solution Flip. We managed to bring in our communication tool, which for the first time opened their communication channels in 2 directions. So it was not anymore just top down, it was also now bottom up communications. We have a user rate of 94% with those who have downloaded this app on their phone. So it's a bring your own device approach that we drive there. We have connected more than 2,200 branches, and we have over 38,000 users now in Germany. And What I really like about this case is, you know, for the first time, frontline workers actually started feeling heard and feeling connected. And what I brought you here are a few examples from the Rossmann, from the shop floor, that what people started, you know, feedbacking back to the management. So we have, for instance, one case where a frontline worker said, well, listen, the go back button is way too close to the 100 euro button, you know. It makes her only just tap the 100 euro button, and then she has to cancel the whole process. And she basically sent that feedback and said, can we maybe move the go back button somewhere else so that, you know, I don't have to cancel my processes. She posted it on Flip, got a lot of reaction. A lot of people started engaging with this comment. And then, you know, of course, management had, was very easy to have a case where, well, this is basically something that we can very much and very easily increase productivity with just the small feedback that we're getting from the frontline. Another one is a client, and it's true as well. Frontline workers often are the people that have the, you know, touch points to our clients. It's not the management in the case of Rossmann. It's actually the frontline workers. So sending back feedback from clients as well to the bigger group can, in this case, be a very positive little note that a client posted. Also reached a lot of engagement within Flip. Or, you know, when you're looking for a price tag or you're looking for an identification number, the way it was done before, you had to call your different stores. You basically had someone calling everyone. Now you can just post in Flip and people can just very quickly react to it. Shift planning is another big thing. People can now just easily plan their shifts online. They don't have to call on the weekends if they're missing someone in the other stores, if someone can come in and help. And what I found really interesting with Rossmann, they put it out thinking in the beginning they have, you know, this will be an easy ride and we will monitor a bit, but the amount of feedback that came with this app basically led Rossmann to a point where they had hired someone to just basically really monitor what's happening in the app and to have a response, a direct response as well, to have people really reacting to the comments and giving their frontline workers really the sense of you're being heard, we see you, your feedback is really valuable. You're more than just, you know, a cashier. You actually contribute to the process and to the productivity and the operation of this company. And what I also like about Rossmann, I mean, you have to have these cases as well. The management is super open. So frontline workers can actually directly message to management as well here. And it's this very simple case of, you know, how communication, opening channels, involving people in the communication can actually have a massive impact on culture, but also on productivity.
And that's one of the things that we found with the work that we've done with frontline staff and digital solutions, is that it's not just about the comms, it's also about combining the productivity with the comms. And a little bit of a tip is that if you want that budget from senior management, always tie in the productivity savings. So one of ours, we found that there was 30 minutes time saving per employee. And if you have 30,000 staff members, that's a lot of time that's just saved in efficiency, combining the comms channel with the productivity. And I love this because it cuts through the need for cascade communication, which is the old school. If we go back to the let's contact the senior management in the store and get them to speak with the staff. Yeah,
Definitely.
You know what cascade is?
Well, I mean, tell us a bit more about the cascade, maybe.
Maybe someone else here want to explain cascade? Any hands up? I know some of you, so I can pick on you. Christopher?
Sure. I mean, maybe by show of hands, does everyone know what cascade is? Is there anyone who doesn't know what cascade means? Okay.
Yep. For Regina?
Cascade, is this working? Yes. A cascade is essentially if you share a message at the top and you hope that line manager by line manager, that information trickles down into your organization. And obviously, if you're in a company that has a lot of frontline workers where those frontline employees do not have direct channels of access via intranet or emails that they're receiving, then the company's reliant upon other people within the organization to cascade that message down. Comes from the cascading waterfall idea.
So lots of room for failure. And one of the organisations that I worked in very closely, we had a call centre staff, about 30,000, and we had to rely on the team leaders to pass on the information, because although the staff members were in front of a computer, they had restricted access. And we very quickly learnt that that information wasn't necessarily going to get through, and we had to think of other campaigns and ways to reach them. So they also had trouble with their shift rosters and things like that.
Now, Monique, having a technology in place, I think we now all understand that it has massive impact and that can really empower internal communications. But it doesn't just, and there you just bring in an application and then you just hope for it to work. There's a whole piece of adaptation and a change process that you have to also, navigate as a company. Can you maybe give us some of your learnings from making that really work?
So firstly, it's about setting up the technology in the right way. And this is one of the things that you said earlier, Regina. You have one go. It's not like you can release something and keep reiterating on the release and hope that it gets better and people like it. You've got to engage with your staff with an excellent product right from the start. And that means first assessing the need, and understanding your staff. So we've talked very generally about frontline workers, but the bus drivers are different from the train drivers. The bus drivers have a lot more customer interaction. They've got different challenges, but it's very easy for us to say, oh, they're the transport drivers, and put them in the same box. So it's really understanding what they're doing. So in the case study that I mentioned, it's Copenhagen, Denmark's second largest supermarket chain. We went in and we spoke with the admin people, the people who were head of dairy or head of the bakery, and then the actual people on the floor who were stocking the shelves, and understood where their pain points were, what the challenges were, and what communication they actually wanted, what channels they were using. And then after that, look at a channel strategy. I think this is more broadly, if we're in corporate communications at the moment, we have the challenge that post-COVID, we've dumped a lot of technology onto people and we haven't necessarily gone down the route of clear channel definition. Like, this is what you use this channel for, this is what you use this channel for. And a perfect example is Teams, for example. I just read there's some Swoop research that's just come out that shows that 26% of staff members don't actually use the channels function for collaboration in Teams. So it's understanding their needs, it's developing a channel strategy, and then going into the adoption. And without the adoption, you can have expensive tools,
right,
but you've wasted your money. So if we look at adoption, there's Janine. I'm not sure if she's in the room she's got a presentation shortly. DPDHL, we did the adoption strategy for the Smart Workspace Connect, which was combining the app with the workspace. And that was across 570,000 staff members. So I'm sure she'll go into more detail with you about that. But the adoption, we use a modified ADCA model, which is much simpler. Inspire, act, share. So it's about inspiring people about the benefits, getting them to act, whether it's downloading the app and using it and making sure you've got a really good product at the start, and then sharing. So sharing their knowledge, sharing their excitement, getting that grassroots level conversation happening so that you get adoption, you get the results, and people are knowledge sharing.
Nice. Great. I think just looking at the time now, because we're really running out, and I just want to make maybe the last few,
we can talk forever
we can
about
talk forever, I know. Just making a few last sentences about, I think, how internal communication has really changed, and about how it always deserved a seat at a table. But I think now with the pressure on the market, it's really the time to make this case. So there's a lot of proof that your CEO and your CFO cannot ignore anymore at this point. It's One, the turnover costs that is really much hurting businesses. People leaving, 630 billion US dollars are being spent on fluctuation and turnover every year. And there are studies that show that turnover is highly linked to a lack of communications. So there's the turnover cost, but there's also productivity costs. If you have your frontline managers do the same routine work over and over again, calling people in an inefficient way to understand the shift plans, to be stuck with operations when what they could do is basically invest their time in retaining their frontline people. When you can, like this case, the Rossmann case, have very simple feedback loops that will give you a better hands in how to become a more productive an organization. Here's a big case that communication can actually make. There's compliance cost to a lack of communication. That's a massive. We live in Europe. We all need to be GDPR compliant, and a lot of the communication happens. It just doesn't happen on the legal ways. It happens in a WhatsApp, and this can be very extremely costly for companies. But there's also the cost of lost opportunities. So if you come in, HR comes in with a great new benefits strategy and approach, and then you look at the adoption rates in your frontline, you're not making the most of your value. You're basically just, your return on investment is not where it should be. And I think you're not capturing, what you intended to capture when companies made these big investments. And there's another one, of course, the employee of choice debate. There's also study that show, especially in the frontline, that pay only differentiates you to a certain amount. What really makes the difference are these intangible topics. So asking your neighbor about how his frontline work looks like, and he tells you he's not feeling heard, he has no voice, he's not being respected. Well, that will have a massive issue whether you want to work there or not, and then it's actually not the pay. So I want to conclude saying the pressure is on, and frontline workers can really choose these days, and the pressure is on the company side. So I would say, as much as we're talking about automation, AI, how it's gonna help us solve these issues, we also find that it's not going to be the blue collar workers that are being replaced by AI first. It's actually the knowledge support functions that are being replaced. So I don't think frontline workers will go anywhere from now anytime soon. So we have a big challenge that we need to solve. And I would argue that internal communications can actually be the hero in this whole story, to actually really be the glue between the frontline workers, their managements, to really help the CEO and the CFO also bring their strategies to life and really bring retention, make retention really work. So for me, it's a business critical position. We can really now make internal communication strong business partner. The technology is there to do it. We just need a mindset shift now as well, and really bring internal communication closer to value creation and to the front line.
Our people are our greatest asset, so let's treat them well. Thank you.
Any questions?
Amazing presentation. Thank you so much, Regina and Monique.
Thank you.
From the audience, some final